Today's question is a big one. I know I need to be on social media, but it gets pushed to the back burner. How do I prioritize it? Okay, this one's a loaded one because social media is everywhere. It has overtaken our lives. Most people are on every single channel. I know for us at Scale Your Small Business, we are on 8 different channels. That is a lot to manage. But what I will say that the thing that has helped me the most, especially on stories, is to remember that we are documenting, not creating. So there's a lot of pressure to be like, create content, you got to make it look perfect. It's got to be awesome. But especially on stories, that's the real life stuff. People are following along on your stories because they want to see your day to day stuff. Now, it can be a lot more interesting just than look at this peanut butter jelly sandwich I made and I'm going to eat it. You can talk about what's happening on your day, what's today like, what makes today different than any other day. I know that if I was able to go back and look at my grandparents' stories back in 1900, that would be incredible documentation. That is something that I would watch. And it's very similar to how we are now. It's just about documenting and not creating things. Now, for a lot of our other content, the podcast, a lot of other things that we do, that's more curated content. So that's stuff that we've mapped out, we've brainstormed out, we're responding to questions that we've received from people through the podcast, through DMs, things like that. So this is a little bit more curated. This is professional lighting, this is full, hair and makeup, this is, recording videos versus through professional equipment, professional mics versus just doing it on my cell phone and showing you, like the other day I showed you the organization in my dining room hutch. Now that's something that doesn't need to be, professional, but it is a big part of my life because while we're going through, the pandemic, I've been organizing everything. And I think it's fun to share those things because that's what I like to see. So keep that in mind when you're potentially stressing out about, I don't know what content to make, or, should I buy this person's system that they'll create all the content for me? Well, no, because it's not you. Because if somebody else is creating that content, it's not going to be about your life. It's going to be about what they think your life should look like, if that makes sense. So keep that in mind. I think the main thing too, when you are working on creating content from a more curated content standpoint, is that you want to create a system that reflects that. Now, I will tell you, before we launched, I thought I had this whole thing mapped out. I knew exactly what I was doing. Turns out that just like anything, once you get into it and you start doing it, some things get thrown out the window because you're like, well, I thought we were going to use that image and it was going to look this way and now it's going to look completely different, or we're doing the catchphrases from the podcast completely different. All these different things, you just have to be open to change. And I think a lot of times especially when we talk about curated social media content, it's always changing. It's always evolving. And you have to be willing to know that ahead of time and be open-minded enough to say, it's gonna look different. It's gonna evolve. Like, if you scroll back through anybody's Instagram feed, you're gonna see that natural evolution because they started off as a beginner, not really knowing what they were doing, and then now they might be a professional. If you look at Gary Vaynerchuk's social media, it looks completely different than it did years and years ago because not only has he evolved, but technology has evolved. He has a huge team that helps him and takes care of all that. And where for most of us, we might have a small team or we might not have a team at all. Or it might be your spouse or your partner that's your team who's going out and taking your Instagram photos if you are a fashion blogger. You might not have a full glam squad yet. You might be doing your own hair and makeup. So know that going into it, that it's, you can't compare your beginning to someone's middle or end. If there's somebody who's been doing this for 7 years, well, they obviously have a lot more experience. They obviously know what they're doing. They know which lighting makes them look best, which room in their house, or how to light outside. It's just everything is changing. Everything is changing. So make sure that you're not comparing yourself to someone else because you don't know what their journey looks like. You don't know what, their evolution looks like unless you go back and look through their beginning videos, and they're probably pretty rough. Sean Cannell talks about this. He owns Think Media and he does a bunch of like online video courses and things. He's amazing. But he actually shows his first video in a lot of his talks and it's hysterical. In that video, he's like, I'm not going to be funny. I'm not, he talks about all the things that he's not going to do. And then he clicks it off and he's like, yeah, who wants to watch that? But you have to remember, we all have a starting point. We all start somewhere and it's gonna be gnarly, but you just gotta do it. And like Chalene Johnson says, you just gotta make it messy because it's gonna change. Things are gonna move. You gotta go for it. Now, once you've created that system, you wanna make a plan. So the key to anything with social media is consistency. Now, you might not have the most fancy camera equipment. You might not have professional lighting. You might not have a glam squad who takes care of you, but consistency is the key. So, just like the news comes on every night at 9 p.m., whether there's something to talk about or not, they're coming on at 9 o'clock, and people are tuning in for that. And it's the same way that you have to think about creating your own content. So, if you are consistently creating content, you're going to get followers. You're going to get people checking out your stuff. Oh, I wonder what she's up to today. That's going to happen naturally over time because people know that you're going to be consistent with posting. Because if you go ham and you're posting every week for 3 weeks and then you disappear for 2 months, people aren't going to come back. And you've probably lost those people that potentially were going to come back because now they're like, well, I'm not even going to check it because I don't know if she's going to be there or not. Doesn't make sense to waste my time to go see if she posted anything when she probably hasn't because she hasn't been active for 2 months. So that's something to keep in mind too, is that start small. You don't have to be on 8 social media channels. You could just be on one. Instagram is my personal favorite. Facebook, not so much, but we are actively making an effort to be there more because we have a huge following on Facebook because it was kind of the first social media. So there's a ton of people that are still there. So keep that in mind, is that this can be something that you can build upon. You don't have to go out of the gate and be like, I'm going to post 3 times a week on every single channel. I'm going to go live 62 times a week. Like, just start small. It's building. We want to create that consistency so people know that they can come back because you're always going to be there. So keep that in mind too. Once you've implemented everything, you're going to have to tweak it. I mean, these past couple weeks since we launched Scale Your Small Business, even though we've been doing things for years, now that everybody knows that it's out, we are consistently tweaking everything because it's just the evolution of, you had this plan and unfortunately it's changed. And maybe it's not even unfortunately, maybe it's fortunately it's changed because you're learning things, you're improving things, you are having people help you, people are making suggestions now. I always really like when people are like, "Well, check with your fans, check with your Instagram people." And you're like, "But I have only a couple. And one of them's my mom." And the other one's my husband. Who am I going to ask? I just think that's funny when people just assume that everybody has a large following because everybody doesn't. But as you gain more traction, as you gain more followers, people are going to give you that feedback. So be open to receiving that because they are ultimately just trying to make you better. Now, there is an exception to that, obviously, because there's just some people that are unhappy in life and they're just an internet troll. So take those folks with a grain of salt, but the people that are consistently giving you good feedback and then all of a sudden have something that maybe is not so positive, you need to receive that and give it some thought of how you can improve that experience because those people have been with you for a really long time. So keep that in mind. You also want to make your plan realistic. So now that you've got the plan going, you're tweaking it, kind of gotten into a rhythm, make sure that it's realistic that you can post every single day, especially as we come into the holidays where there's a lot more going on. Hopefully things will get back to normal, here with COVID and the pandemic. I hope it'll get better by the first of the year, but nobody knows. So you want to make sure that it's a realistic in your plan so that way you don't have this huge thing that you're going to do, but then boom, Christmas gets dropped in your lap and you fall off the face of the earth because you weren't prepared because now you have all these places you need to go and all these extra things that you need to do. You need to plan ahead also for when your staff are going to be taking vacation. Now, typically that could be, the first couple weeks of summer, people want to get out and do things, but also during the winter time. Like we know that Rachel is going to be gone for 2 weeks in December. That means for those 2 weeks that she's going to be gone, we've got to get everything edited and done so she can leave knowing that everything is in good hands, it's all set to post, and we're not gonna be frantically calling her while she's on vacation saying, "Oh my god, we got forgot this last minute thing. Can you please jump on and edit it really quick?" You don't wanna do that. That's not respectful to anybody, especially when they deserve a break. You have to allow them to take a break, and that means that you have to plan ahead of time. Again, you've gotta be flexible. All this stuff is changing. I mean, the algorithms change every day. I know a lot of people that complain about the algorithm. It's just one of those things. Just get used to it. It's never going away. You just have to adjust to it, go with the flow on it, and know that the things that you created today are going to look totally different next month, 6 months from now, a year from now. It's going to look completely different. So just be open to making those changes, and that will make your life so much easier because you won't be complaining or frustrated because Facebook did something and now it looks completely different and now you don't know where the such and such is. You just have to go with the flow and know that it's gonna change.